Welcome to Medicine Rock State Park. This park is about 12 miles north of Ekalaka, Montana, and we are here on a beautiful evening. Hopefully we can see some great stars as well. The park itself is full of these rock formations that have a bunch of holes in them. It's a very soft sandstone, about 61 million years old, just after the time of the dinosaurs. We find some fossils in them as well, but what we really find in these rocks are a lot of petroglyphs, which are carvings by native people. There are also a lot of carvings by much more recent people. So we want to make sure that we can protect these rocks to keep this space safe. Now, welcome. I hope you enjoy this star party live from Medicine Rocks State Park. Let's take a look at why we are here at Medicine Rocks. What makes them so important to us as stargazers? Most of rural Montana represents some of the darkest skies left in the country. Outside of Billings, most of southeastern Montana has retained its pristine darkness. Medicine Rock State Park is nestled between two small rural towns in southeastern Montana. Because of this, there is little light pollution blocking our view of the stars. Our dark skies at Medicine Rocks could be even darker, but there is a little light pollution coming from the North Dakota oil fields, which obscures our northern horizon. Regardless, we can make out the Milky Way band in detail, see planets, and observe other space objects with the naked eye. Now let's take a tour of what you can find stargazing here in Medicine Rocks right now. You can give it a try yourself by trying to find the same shapes and objects from home. Tonight I'll be using two programs to help show you all the night sky. The first is Stellarium, a free software that replicates the night sky in great... Let's get started stargazing. Can we see any stars? Not really. However, there is one big star in our way, the sun. The sun's light is scattered in our atmosphere, which blocks out the other stars during the daytime. Since it has such high energy in its direct beams during the daytime, the light we see in the sky is blue. Now in the Stellarium, I have the power over time and space, so I'll set that sun. Oh look, there's Venus. Let me clear some of this stuff out of the way so we can see better. Now you can find Venus tonight looking out in the western sky. It will set just after sunset, and it looks like Mercury will be following along as well. Mercury and Venus should be visible in the western sky around 75 minutes after sunset. Make sure you get outside to check them out. And they'll set earlier over the next week or so until they set, so get out soon. You don't need a telescope to see Venus. It's the brightest object in our night sky besides the moon, and it won't twinkle. Remember, twinkle, twinkle, little star, not twinkle, twinkle, little planet. Mercury should be easy to find as well, but a pair of binoculars may help you out. Let's visit these guys later, so we'll move forward. As the sun sets, we should start to see more and more stars. So many stars that some of it just appears as background noise for our eyes. Can you connect any of the stars to make shapes? Ancient people connected the dots to tell their stories in what we call constellations. Looks like there are some stars that are moving up there too. Those must be satellites. Why don't we zoom in on one? How about this bright one? This one will pass over our northern sky just after sunset. Why don't I bring up all the rest of the constellations for us, so we can get a bigger picture of our night sky. These shapes in the stars represent stories, mostly from the Greeks and Babylonians. Their stories are good for helping us wayfind in the night sky, but you can imagine the shapes in any way that is helpful for you. Whatever you see that helps you remember the shapes in the stars is what matters most. Here's what the Greeks saw in the night sky. What do you see? A dragon? A lion? A swan? There's so many things to imagine in our night sky. Why don't we start with this really big one right here. It's called Ursa Major, the Big Bear. It is famous for having the Big Dipper inside of it. The Big Dipper is not a constellation. Instead, it's called an asterism, or unofficial constellation. The Big Dipper has many different names to different people. Some see it as a plow, a casserole dish, a big wagon, a salmon net. And oddly enough, a number of people saw it as a bear. The Greeks put the head on the side where my cursor is now, but some native people put it on the other side at the very top there. We can use the Big Dipper inside the bear to find the North Star. Use these two stars at the bottom of the Big Dipper to point across the sky until you reach Polaris, this star at the end of the tail of Ursa Minor, the little bear. Polaris sits directly above the North Pole, so it never moves to us and always points north. The Greeks say that Zeus threw these bears into the night sky to save them from being hunted. Now, all of these stars within this circle are what we call circumpolar. That means these stars never set. They will always be in our northern sky, including Ursa Minor, the little bear, and Draco the dragon. Draco is a fierce dragon that surrounds the little bear. In Arabic myth, it is seen as two mother camels protecting a baby from two hyenas. The Greek myth sets Draco as the guardian of a tree with golden apples, in this case the Little Dipper. And Hercules has to retrieve the golden apples as one of his labors to becoming a god. Hercules will be directly overhead tonight. He'll be right around here. Now, Hercules wasn't the nicest of guys, though. I like to think of him as a super jock, more like Jercules. See, he uses his harp here, Lyra, to put Draco to sleep. He then steals all the golden apples and kills Draco for no good reason. The goal was to get the apples, not kill the dragon, you jerk! Let's circle back to Lyra and its relationship to Polaris. Vega is the brightest star in Lyra, and it's the fifth brightest star in our night sky. While Polaris is the North Star today, in 8,000 years, Vega will be the North Star in our night sky. Next in our northern sky is Cassiopeia. She is the queen of ancient Ethiopia and appears as this W in the night sky. You can find her by following those north pointer stars to look opposite from the Big Dipper. Since they're both up every night of the year, it's a reliable way to find the W of Cassiopeia. The queen is supposed to be sitting on a throne with her head all the way up top here. Lucky for her, she sits right in the sky next to her husband, King Cepheus. Cassiopeia is punished for saying she was prettier than one of Poseidon's daughters. Now, Poseidon almost ransacked all of their kingdom with a giant sea monster because of this, but luckily they were saved by Perseus. For her punishment, Cassiopeia spends half of the year upside down in the sky. Well, that about does it for this part of the sky, so why don't we move towards the south to see some more of our seasonal stars? Before we get too far, I'll point out what is left of our winter constellations. Here's Capella, the brightest star in Auriga the Charioteer, and the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux. These stars are part of the Winter Circle, an asterism like the Big Dipper that contains many of the brightest stars in our night sky, including Orion and Taurus. As we look to the south, we are viewing our seasonal sky. These are the stars that change over the course of our year. Currently in our spring sky, there are lots of interesting constellations to explore. Now let's get started with our zodiac signs. The zodiac constellations are the ones that fall in the path of the sun, so they are eclipsed by the sun as the Earth revolves in orbit. You may know your zodiac sign, but don't go looking for it on your birthday, or you'll be looking directly into the sun, and that's not safe. Now wait 6 months after your birthday, and you should be able to see your zodiac sign in the night sky. Currently, we can see Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpius, and part of Sagittarius. First up is Leo the lion, the herald of spring. Leo is a great lion with impenetrable skin. That jerk Hercules has to fight this lion and ends up wrestling him into submission, claiming his pelt as an armor reward. Think of him in profile like the Sphinx. He's lying down. I know, all my jokes are terrible. Now let's take a look at the brightest star in Leo. Regulus is the heart of the lion, and like a heart has 4 chambers, there are 4 stars in this star system, called double binary. The next zodiac is Virgo, the beautiful maiden. Her head is up here, she has large wings, and carries a grain of wheat, called Spica. Spica is one of our brightest stars in spring, and I'll show you how to find it. We need another constellation for help, though. Above Virgo is Boides, the herdsman, and his bright star Arcturus. He kind of looks like an ice cream cone. He's often seen as driving the plow, another name for the Big Dipper. Using the Big Dipper's handle, you can find the bright star Arcturus inside of Boides. I like to say it like this: you can arc to Arcturus and speed on down to Spica. When Spica sets in the west, that meant it was time to harvest the crops, making Virgo the goddess of the harvest. Next up is Libra, the scales of justice. This dim constellation is not the easiest to find, but we can certainly see it out here at Medicine Rocks. This is the only zodiac that is an inanimate object. These 2 stars to the left were once the claws of Scorpius, the great scorpion next door. However, it would have made things out of balance. Scorpius will be full later in the summer, but Ophiuchus above him can be seen in his entirety. Ophiuchus is a doctor holding 2 snakes, believe it or not. The snakes tell him the secret to eternal life. He is technically the newest zodiac since his knee cuts into the path of the sun, so now there are 13 zodiacs. Though we can't see him quite yet, Sagittarius is right next door, where we'll be able to find Saturn and Jupiter in the summer. Right here in this spot is where the center of our galaxy is, where the supermassive black hole driving our galaxy sits. Well, we've made it through some of the brightest and most famous constellations that we can see in our night sky. I hope you get a chance to get out there and look up yourself to see what you can find from home. Now we'll go live to our telescopes viewing Mercury and Venus in conjunction.
It's about 20 minutes after sunset. We're looking just about west in Medicine Rock State Park. And you see that one super bright object in the sky. It is not twinkling. That there is Venus. It will appear incredibly bright to your naked eye, but not the brightest in my camera here. Even if we zoom in, you can see how bright it still is. I'm going to try and get a little bit of footage of it in the telescope to see if we can catch it and Mercury in conjunction.
I'm starting out by lining up my telescope using my finder scope. And within my finder scope alone, I can already see Venus and Mercury in pretty good detail. It's so rare to have them within the same shot. That's what really makes this event special, is that Venus and Mercury are so close. Conjunction means 2 or more planets can be traced within a line. They are so close. We are lucky that this conjunction can be seen with the naked eye, but I'll show you my setup here in Medicine Rocks. Here is my telescope on the prairie with Venus off in the distance. Now I'll zoom into my finder scope so you can see what I'm talking about. There. Now you can see both planets easily within this finder scope. Let's zoom out to show you the horizon once more. Venus has been putting on a show for months. It is the brightest object in our night sky next to the moon. Oddly enough, it is only in a crescent phase and is still the brightest object that we can see next to the moon. Mercury and Venus both show phases unlike any other planet that we see in our night sky. This helped people understand that Earth is the 3rd planet from the Sun, with Venus and Mercury closer to the Sun. Here I have Mercury in a yellow filter, and notice it's starting to creep up in the screen, right? Well, Mercury isn't moving, at least not that much, nor is my telescope moving. It's locked in place. What's going on here? The Earth is spinning. We're capturing the spin of the Earth within the movement of this planet. This is what makes planetary observing so difficult. You have to always chase after the planets while trying to observe them at the same time. Let's move over to Worldwide Telescope so we can observe these planets further. You are looking at the solar system horizontally right now. You can see that weird wonkety orbit, that's Pluto, and it's part of the reason why it's no longer a planet. Sorry. We're going to zoom in on Mercury. Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun. It is also one of the hottest planets, but not the hottest planet. That title goes to Venus because of all of its greenhouse gases. Now, Mercury doesn't really have an effective atmosphere, so it can't trap any of that heat from the sun. It just bombards the surface and bounces right off. That means the opposite side of Mercury is incredibly cold. There are even parts on Mercury's surface that have water ice. They never receive sunlight. The bottom of these deep craters. Mercury has so many craters because it does not have an effective atmosphere, so it can be constantly bombarded by all of these other objects. Let's explore how craters differ on different planets through a short experiment I've got ready for us. Craters are deep depressions formed from an impact from an extraterrestrial object. To clarify, some of them are a little different. Asteroids are out in outer space in orbit around the sun in the asteroid belt. Meteors are a little different. A meteor is one of these rocks that has now entered Earth's atmosphere and caught fire. And finally, meteorites are rocks from outer space that have landed on Earth. I know it sounds weird to have different names for all three, even though they're the same rock, but they have their each individual clarification. Let's start with how craters look here on Earth. For each test, I will be dropping a marble from the same height to see how the impact changes on each world. Alright, let's get started with Earth. What do you think's going to happen? Think that in your brain, and then we'll find out in just a few seconds. Let's see that again in slow motion. Do you see that spray of material? That's called ejecta. The meteorite is moving rock out of the way so it can form a cavity in the sand. Let's move on to Mars. Do you think it'll be bigger or smaller than what we saw here on Earth? Let's find out. This is Martian simulant, exactly the rock we find on Mars. Wow, it looked like it just bounced right off. Like there's no damage done at all. Why don't we take another look at that in slow motion to make sure we were right? Yeah, there's very little ejecta in this crater. It looks like it just bounced right off of the surface of Mars. And that is what we find on Mars. Craters are very shallow, leaving meteorites to sit right on the surface. Let's move on to the Moon and see how it differs from Earth and Mars. The Moon here is represented by flour, which is the same particle size as moon dust. Wow, that made a huge crater. Did you see that ejecta? It shot right out of my bowl. Let's take a look in slow motion. The surface of the Moon is so soft because it's constantly bombarded by meteorites, causing all of this volcanic glass to be pulverized to dust. This glassy dust is the main issue with getting back to the Moon. When our astronauts returned from the Moon, their shoes were all cut up because of this dust. It even clung to their spacesuits. I want to show you a really interesting thing that happened recently on the Moon. During the most recent lunar eclipse, a meteorite smacked into the darker portion of the Moon, illuminating a new-born crater. We were lucky to be looking in the right place at the right time for something completely different. Next, I'm going to go through a demonstration about telescopes.
Have you ever looked into a spoon and noticed, oh my gosh, I'm upside down? Don't worry, you're gonna be fine. Your spoon's doing something really cool because it's a concave mirror. We're gonna talk a little bit more about mirrors now. Let's imagine this foam strip is a mirror. All of these sticks here are the light bouncing back from the mirror back to you. So we have my eyes going straight into the mirror and back, and my chin going straight into the mirror and back. Now, if we bend that mirror, well, that concave shape like our spoon sets everything upside down. So now you see my chin is at the top of my head, and my eyes are at my chin. So everything appears upside down. Now, if you look at yourself at the back of the spoon, you'll notice, okay, we're safe, we're right side up. But your head is really long, and that's just weird. Well, let's go back to our mirror. If we make it convex, or go the other way, all the tongs are farther apart. So we've stretched our image. Telescopes can do the same thing too with the mirrors inside of them. This kind of telescope is a reflecting telescope, meaning it has two mirrors that then take an image from the sky and direct it to your eye. Now, the mirror at the back of this telescope is concave, just like our spoon. So, what we see inside of our telescope will be upside down. When you look in the barrel of your telescope, you'll notice that your face is even upside down as you look down into the telescope. Don't worry, it's normal. That's my face! Now, these telescopes, they're used for viewing things in outer space, not necessarily made for viewing things on Earth. If you want to view things at a long distance on Earth, you can use a finder scope or some binoculars. Binoculars will do a better job for you. They will not turn things upside down. But in outer space, upside down doesn't matter. Upside down is only relative to what you experience. And here on Earth, our feet are on the ground and our heads go up. In outer space, if you're floating out in zero gravity, you have no idea what place is up and what place is down. So, it doesn't matter. And that's the same with how we observe in outer space. It doesn't matter which way is up. These aren't the only kinds of telescopes that we have. This is a reflecting telescope. We also have refracting telescopes. Now let's talk a little bit more about those.
Refracting telescopes use two lenses to bend light to observe deep space objects. I can show you how these lenses work by using something you might find around the house, some ordinary magnifying lenses. By using two magnifying lenses, you can focus the object you are trying to observe at a long distance. Let's see how this works with this magnifying glass, trying to make that deep image inside of Yrex's mouth visible. Under one lens, it doesn't look the clearest. It's still pretty fuzzy, even though everything got bigger. I can even try to focus it by putting it farther away and closer to see what view looks best. Why don't we add in a second lens? Now let's try and focus this lens. You can see that the object we're observing is upside down now, but we're trying to smoothly zoom in, and I think we are just about there. Let's zoom, enhance. Oh look, it's a little green alien waving hi. Hi. Oh wait, get out of there, you're about to be chomped on by a T-Rex. Ah! That is how we use lenses to understand refracting telescopes.
P.S. No aliens were hurt in the making of this video.
Well, looks like that's all the time we have for exploring today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you get outside and look up.
There we go! Now it's right side up.